PC gamer motherfuckers.
Hello, welcome to episode 118 of Chet and John's Reassuringly Finite Gaming Playlist. My name's John Denton. With me this time is Mr. Samuel Roberts, editor of PC Gamer magazine, long-time friend of mine, and he's here to talk about his adventures out in California at E3 as well as what else he's been playing. So you know the deal, 2 top 10 lists, 1 being the game we played the most this week, 10 being the game we played the least. That's the other way around to how I always say it, which is weird. So if you'd like to kick things off, Samuel.
Yeah, how do, Bromeo? Sorry, Chet normally does a ridiculous intro, so you know.
Sorry.
I didn't want to miss my window, you know. Okay, so my number 10, John, is Assassin's Creed Unity on. I think it was on PC, but played with a PlayStation 4 controller.
The classic.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to go to E3, like John says, and about a year ago I did a podcast very similar to this, where I played a whole bunch of games at E3, and then John, your list by comparison, I remember you feeling pretty down about it. But
that may be the case again this week, but more than happy for it to be that way.
I don't think it'll be quite as relentless this time, but Assassin's Creed Unity, like I don't think everyone got hands on with it at E3, but I was lucky to play it a bit, and it does look amazing. Like I know that it's a series you've always had a bit of a complicated relationship with.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be understating it.
Yeah, and I obviously know what some of the background for that for that reasoning might be, and. Basically, like the kind of crowd sizes in this, the way Paris looks, the fact you can go in and out of interiors seamlessly, that makes it feel like, I mean, you know, obviously people are saying this a lot, but it does make it feel like a bit more of a kind of next-gen title. Assassin's Creed feels like it's been technically in a bit of a rut, like it hasn't moved forward technically for me since probably the second one. Like it's always kind of looked about the same. It genuinely does look a lot better here. And the big thing with this generation is like particle effects, you know, like lighting and smoke and all that stuff does look amazing. But the key thing for me was like them fixing the actual gameplay stuff, and like I got to play the platforming a bit, and you might have seen the free running in the Ubisoft demo in the morning of E3 at the Xbox conference, and basically, you can now like you hold A to kind of move up a building and hold B to move down.
Okay.
But if you tap either of those buttons while you're moving and time it right, you actually get a little bit of a speed boost and can move efficiently through the environment. Assassin's Creed. Yeah, that's the thing. Like Assassin's Creed platforming, right? It's always had that problem of like hold down one button to get everywhere, and it's just lacks interaction. And what they told me in the interview afterwards is they're going for a bit of mastery with this. So everything you learn in the game, you actually do feel a sense of progression with, and just having the kind of not having to use the bales of hay. I don't think they're in this anymore. I think they got rid of those because they were really, really contrived, right? And everyone hated those. Now you can move down a building naturally. You don't have to worry about like this kind of like awkward falling off a building and like holding down B to kind of drop and stuff like that. It's all done really kind of fluidly. Like I can really kind of see some progression in there for the series. And while I don't know how the co-op stuff works, I'm actually really excited about it.
That sounds pretty interesting. I watched the demo. I think there was like a trailer, maybe 2 different demos or something like that. But I must say I was very impressed by that crowd size at the beginning. And it looked a bit more organic than it has done in the past. Right, my number 10 is a game called Gretel and Hansel. I asked for some browser-based games to talk about this week because I needed some games to play, and this one was mentioned on Twitter to me. I loaded it up. There's 2 different games. There's 1 and 2, and straight away it seemed like a very nicely drawn, kind of almost hand-drawn point-and-click adventure, and it looked really good. It was very stylish, sort of a point-and-click adventure where you actually move your avatar around the screen and then you're interacting with things, kind of retelling the Hansel and Gretel story. And I thought straight away, do you know what? This looks like something that I need to give a bit more time. That I'm looking for like a 5-10 minute type of thing right now. So I'm going to go back to this one. I definitely say to take a look at it though, even from the very, very short amount I played. It does seem very interesting. And certainly extremely stylish. I don't know, have you heard of these?
I actually don't know a lot about it, no.
Yeah, no, I'd not heard about it before, but the chap recommended both of them to me. That was the first recommendation I got, actually, and I'll go back and take another look. Yeah, it's just way more in depth than I had time to dedicate to it at this particular juncture, but Yeah, it seems cool.
Well, such as number 10 on the list, right?
Yes. Yeah, as it so often is.
Absolutely. No, it sounds kind of cool. Assuming you're going to kind of keep up with that a little bit and maybe talk about it in depth more on
Yeah,
a
I'm going to
later
go back to
podcast.
it. Yeah, I'm going to go back to it. Probably talk about it more next week.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Well, my number 9 is something I didn't actually play for very long, but had a go with at E3 just on the stand, was Smash Brothers for 3DS, or Super
Okay.
Smash Brothers for 3DS. Um, it's weird. Like, I think there's an American culture around Smash Brothers that's just like huge,
Mm.
way bigger than it is in Europe or Japan, I assume.
Yeah.
Just because like there was like the Nokia theater filled with people watching kind of like tournament and stuff like that at E3. And I went to this event at E3 where the creator was talking about the game on stage, and there was loads of people in the audience dressed as Nintendo characters, and my heart broke for this kind of nerdy looking kid. I mean, everyone there was nerdy
Yeah.
looking, right? Because we're video games.
Yeah.
But he was dressed as Link, and he had his arm up trying to ask Sakurai a question, and he was propping his arm up with his second arm, like you see sometimes.
Yeah.
And he never got his question in.
Oh man.
And I just thought, shit, if I was that kid, would I go home and kill myself afterwards? I don't know. I might do. Like I assume he's travelled from miles away because, like, I don't think everyone kind of there lives in LA. They probably just
Yeah.
travelled a long way to see it. And my heart broke that you couldn't ask him a question, but that's got nothing to do with the game. Yeah, yeah, but it's interesting what they're doing with the Smash Brothers games this year because like the Wii U and 3DS ones have the same character roster but completely different levels.
Okay.
So the I don't know how kind of like into the series you are, John. I'm assuming not very,
I
but
played the Wii one a fair bit, and I thought it was fun. And I never really played. I never really played the other ones. But yeah, I'm probably the prototypical European Smash Brothers player, as opposed to the Americans who love it. I played it a bit. I thought it was fun, but that was about it.
yeah. I was kind of like I'm in the mindset that I don't actually think it's a very good fighting game,
Mm.
but it is a good kind of like party fighting game. Like if you're not actually trying that hard, that you just hit smash attacks and kind of hope for the best. But I do appreciate it on a kind of like fan service level. People who love Nintendo do love this stuff. And in the 3DS one, you get kind of levels that are spins on Game Boy and DS games.
Okay.
And the art style is actually really different. It's kind of like quite strong black outlines on characters, so they look a bit comic booky. And they had it blown up on screens, and even on a kind of like a small HD TV, like the game still looked amazing, blown up
Right.
from the 3DS, and that was a real shock because that's because the art style they've picked is just so good for it, and all the controls translate really well. It looks fantastic. It was a level set on the DS version of Rainbow Road from Mario Kart. Yeah, I thought it looked really nice and was a lot of fun, and it's the first Smash Brothers on handheld, and I think it'll do really well.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll do very well indeed. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm probably going to pick up the Wii U one just because it does look so lovely. But I
Yeah.
can't see me picking up this one. I guess it's just difficult because it's such a local multiplayer game. Not that I ever have anybody to play local multiplayer games with, but I guess people just play sitting around on all their 3DSs, won't they?
I think so.
People have lives that are so different to mine. Who do I know? I don't know anything about these people.
Well, I think it's like a case of it'll be the same thing with everyone actually, because like the Wii U ones had massive crowds, but hardly anyone was playing the 3DS ones when I went round.
Right.
So it really is a local multiplayer party game. But I think releasing the 3DS one before the Wii U one is probably a smart move business wise, because that's how people kind of like feed their hunger for it, I suppose. But no, it's pretty impressive. Like it controls really nicely. Feels like the same old Smash Brothers, just on a handheld. So there's a bit of novelty there, really.
Yeah. Good old Nintendo. They're trying. They're definitely trying. Okay, my number 9 is a game that Chet's talked about a couple of times on recent podcasts. It's Don't Look Back, the Terry Kavanagh game. This is, I'm pretty sure what it is available on PC, but it's also available on phones, and that's the version I played on my big Samsung phone. And as cool as it seemed, the controls on the phone version was so bad that it's almost impossible to play. It's got an on-screen left and right, on-screen jump, and on-screen shoot button, but they're tiny. They're absolutely tiny on the screen. Way smaller than even the pointiest part of my thumb. So I just spent most of the game missing them. And it's a difficult technical action platformer, and in a difficult technical action platformer, you can't be missing the buttons because you just die over and over and over again. So it was a shame because it seemed cool, and I'll probably try and play it on PC, but it doesn't work on the Android version. But it is free. But yeah, maybe it just needs some bigger buttons. Sort it out, Kavanagh.
Yeah, that's interesting actually, because Terry Kavanagh is a kind of like a really kind of liked sort of like almost cult figure, I suppose, in games industry. But yeah, if it's a kind of precision platformer, then I don't see how a kind of touch screen is really the right sort of format for it.
No, not really, especially when the buttons are so small. It's just released VVVVV on the phones as well, which I didn't buy because it was a couple of quid, and I've already got it. But yeah, I hope that that works a bit better. I hope so. Should do.
Yeah.
But it's similar. Similar. It depends. Don't make the buttons so small.
Yeah, I might check that out. That sounds kind of interesting. His games are always sort of like, conceptually quite cool.
Yeah, I do like a lot of his games. Super Hexagon still one of my all-time faves.
Indeed. Yeah, a lot of respect for him. Yeah, cool. No, that's good. I'll yeah. If that's kind of got your nod of approval and Chet's, then
yeah, like I say, it seemed cool, but I'm sure I'll enjoy it when I play it properly.
Indeed. Okay, cool. So my number 8 is Transistor on PC. I've kind of like I've had this on the sort of like back burner for a little while. I picked it up every now and then, and there's stuff I love about it. I love the music. I love the art direction. Like I think the kind of main character is just like really well designed. The enemies are quite cool, and for a kind of like action RPG where you're essentially, I suppose, like building your own combos. Which is what it is. It's sort of like, it's not completely unique, but it sort of sits between genres in a way that I think is really compelling. No, it's really nicely done, man, and it's got a kind of really nice pace to it as well. Like you can play it for like 20 minutes at a time, which really is my kind of like limit at the moment in terms of what I can do in terms of attention span. Just dying inside as a human being. No, it's cool. I really kind of like the sort of like when you kind of go through. I think it's called the back door. How in depth have you played it now?
I finished the game. And it is called the back door, isn't it?
Yeah. And so when you kind of go and see like the digital sunset and there's kind of always different stuff going on there, and there's like this little kind of beachfront and things like that. I love stuff like that in a game. Just things where it feels like you can just sort of take a break and relax. And for some reason, it reminds me of God Hand. I think it's only because like the way you kind of layer combos together.
That makes sense.
And there's no game that's really picked up on God Hand's sort of legacy, because it was the most widely ignored game ever, despite being made by the creator of Resident Evil. It was really weird, but no, I think it's great. I think it's. I mean, obviously, you've gone through it. It's not that long, so I'm looking forward to getting near the end of it. Love the progression systems. Think it's a kind of perfect little game, really, and well attuned to New Game Plus from what I hear. So should probably check that out.
It really is. I don't know if I'll go back to it now. Just it's, I say it every week, but there's just so many games, and well, Chet and I have set ourselves a task of playing 10 of the fuckers every week, which doesn't help. But I do like Transistor a lot. I admire it a lot. I didn't really engage too well with the story. It's very, very obtuse. Really nicely done, but perhaps slightly too obtuse, I found. And as much as I admired and enjoyed the combat, it never really grabbed me in the way that the greatest games do. But these aren't really huge criticisms. It's just it kind of never really took that extra step to be something that I was raving about. But it's by no means poor or bad or in any way. It was very, very good. So it's definitely recommended, and I've got such a huge amount of admiration for Supergiant Games. Out there in San Francisco, just doing their own thing, and doing very well. It seems like Bastion and this. I don't know how well this is done, but I know Bastion did well. I'm sure we'll see this on other platforms and stuff soon.
Yeah, I'm sure this did well, is just as a result of like the kind of drought on PS4 stuff in recent months. I think this came out like almost exactly the same time as Watch Dogs, so it's like, I mean,
it did, didn't it?
That's I'm sure that's kind of like helped them having that kind of prominence on the platform. But I agree with you on some level about the combat, actually. Like, I mean, because of the way you kind of plan up attacks, I think it just doesn't give you the same sort of feedback loop you'd get from a more immediate combat system. Maybe that's the kind of like feeling you're getting from it.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Cool.
Okay. My number 8 then is another Terry Kavanagh game. In fact, it's called Super Gravitron. Another freebie on Android. This is actually a mini game that happens at the end of VVVVV, a game that I haven't finished, and it is basically like a crazy mini. Difficult to describe. You're the little dude from VVVVV, and he's constantly bouncing across from the top to the bottom of the screen. You know, the gravity's changing. You can choose to do it in the main game. Here, it's happening automatically. And stuff just zaps in from either side of the screen, and all you can do is move left and right while the guy's being pinged up and down, and you've got to dodge the stuff. The first challenge it sets you is to last 5 seconds, so that kind of gives you an impression of how difficult it is. It's impossibly difficult, but it's just like so many of his games. You know that what you need to do is, instead of tensing up and trying really hard, you just have to relax, like completely relax, just make all your muscles loose and kind of clear your mind. And that's how you do well on Super Hexagon. You know, you just have to completely just let yourself play it and not try and squeeze and your tongue sticking out. None of that works. And it's, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love Super Hexagon so much, because it's kind of like a really amazing like lesson for life somehow. Like I use it before jiu-jitsu tournaments, because a lot of the same principles apply if you're competing in a world like that you just can't tense up, you can't stress, you need to just let your body relax as much as possible, and that's way easier to focus when you do that. And this is the same. It's not as good because it's just a mini game, but it still requires those same principles in order to succeed. And he's tapped into that better than anyone in a long time. It's kind of a staple of high speed action gaming, but he seems to be like really heading towards that. That's in the way he creates the music in his games, and he chooses the music for his games as well, and the kind of visual aesthetic to them as well, all kind of combine to create this thing where you just have to completely relax and allow yourself to not stress out, because otherwise you're going to tense up and you're going to mess up. So it's just like that, but it's harder than Super Hexagon. It's not as good as Super Hexagon, but it's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's I've kind of seen that around for a while, but it's the name that just keeps putting me off. How lame is that?
I know what you mean. If I would have never ever have played it if it didn't have his name attached to it.
Yeah, like it's the kind of like, it sounds like a keyboard error, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, when like if someone called a game like QWERTY Up or something, I just have to not play it ever.
I'm not playing QWERTY Up.
No, it's his games do have a kind of like weird psychological effect on people, I think. Yeah, and part of the music, part of the kind of like simplicity of the art direction, and excuse me, and the feedback loop is part of that as well. Yeah, I kind of like that he's kind of got his own niche like that. Like that's, if I was an indie developer, I think that's where I'd want to be, really.
Yeah.
In terms of something that John Denton needs to play before he goes to beat people up, like, you know.
Or get beaten up, depending on how it goes.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay. Cool. My number 7 is The Crew from Ubisoft.
Oh, nice.
Now, how do you feel about this, John? Because I feel like
it seems cool.
Good. Because like everyone sort of sees it as the kind of also ran from Ubi's like E3 lineup, and I thought that
fucking pissy about nothing all the time. Why wouldn't you be excited? I mean, it might be shit, but you know, it sounds good.
I don't think it will be.
No.
Like, the handling is. Sorry, yeah.
I was just talking about a game I haven't played when you have played it. So yeah. Oh, shut up.
No, sorry, man. Basically, the handling I think is kind of a bit odd at first. Like, it's arcadey, but it's a little bit stiff. It feels. So I played through it with about 3 different cars of varying kinds. I think I did 2 kind of like normal sort of, I don't know, sedan-like cars. Sedan is probably the wrong word, actually. You're talking to a man who knows nothing about cars.
I know nothing.
And then like, and then some kind of like heavy off-road stuff as well. And I'll be honest, it's not actually the racing side of it I'm looking forward to. It's just driving it across the map really. I'm looking forward to. Yeah, like, I mean, I do think it's too ambitious to do the entirety of America in like, you know, kind of like one thing. But in terms of like to do that kind of with kind of really deep, in a really detailed way, that's tricky. But to have like a few of the individual cities have their own kind of touches and the general vibe of the place to be there, I like the idea of driving across America in like 2 hours while like listening to a custom soundtrack. And yeah, like there is no other game right now that gives you that experience, that kind of like extension of the Test Drive Unlimited thing. You know, that sort of game doesn't really exist anymore. The last time I think I kind of enjoyed something like that, I suppose, was probably Forza Horizon.
Yeah, I love that game.
Yeah, so I suppose there'll be a bit of that with the sequel, but this will be different to that, I think, in terms of like style. It really is kind of feel like a kind of it's an RPG in a kind of really sort of like fiercely traditional sense. It's weird, like all of the kind of vehicle parts you collect from completing races and like team related events and stuff like that is treated as loot, and you are kind of on a basic progression system with like real levels that do just make it feel like an RPG that just happens to have cars in it, which is a bit weird, but I quite like the combination of stuff in there. Like I think the exploration side of things along with that makes it suddenly feel like not a traditional racing game, and that its appeal might actually be a bit broader than a racing game. So I actually really liked what I saw of it. Yeah, like I really would like to spend like a kind of few hours exploring that kind of map before I make a call on it and doing a few more of the challenges, but it's not short of stuff to do. And I think that it might be a kind of sort of like medium-sized hit. But yeah, it's nearly finished now, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely up for it too. Yeah, definitely. Like you say, the idea of driving across America like that is appealing, especially if the handling feels decent. And then all the other kind of integrated online stuff, I'm certainly intrigued by it. People just go, the crew. I say some people, I don't even listen to people like that. But yeah.
It's a bad name.
What do you say?
It's a bad name.
It's a terrible name, but fuck it.
Yeah.
It sounds like something from about 1998.
But it just sounds so different from my lifestyle. I would never be in a crew of any kind, you know?
No crew, no.
No, I've got very soft hands. People with soft hands just aren't in crews.
That is good advice for life from Samuel Roberts. My number 6 then is a game that might be good if you have soft hands. It's Paperama on the Android. As you're bringing out these AAA games that aren't out yet, I'm bringing shitty free Android games. But what can you do? This is a game where you have to fold pieces of paper into shapes that it asks you to fold in a specific number of folds. I've always been terrible at things like this, utterly terrible, and no different here. So you get a big piece of paper and it asks you to fold it into like the shape of sort of like, I don't know, a flag with a pointy end. And so you fold the top up and then fold the thing across. I'm just fucking awful at it, but it's quite satisfying. And the paper folding mechanics, I guess, like the feel of grabbing a corner of the paper and folding it over, it always seems to work really well. So in that respect, it's a very fine piece of software, type of thing that you can imagine a grandparent playing and enjoying on their phone or tablet, but not something I'd say necessarily rush out and get unless you're looking for something to play at a slightly more sedate pace than most of the games of this world that we talk about.
Paperama, you say?
Paperama, like
armor is in like Dark Souls guy wears
no,
armor. That was an example I could think of.
Bananarama.
Oh, right.
Not wearing armor made out of
oh, right. That's why I couldn't find it on Google. That explains it. Yeah, that actually does sound quite appealing, like in terms of pacing, and it looks really pretty as well.
It's a fine piece of game. Fine piece of game. What am I talking about?
Yeah. And it's apparently massively popular on Google Play, and I had no idea.
Yeah, it's always funny. I'm always shown these games by people who don't normally play games. This was actually by Nat's elder sister that she had it on her phone. So yeah, that's how I discovered this game. But yeah, there's so many millions of games out there on Google Play in the world. Some of them are quite good, even if you wouldn't normally play them. It's
been installed over 5 million times. Like that's and I've never heard of it. That either says I'm massively out of touch, or I'm just I don't have an Android phone, which is true. But yeah, it does look like a fine bit of game. I think I will give that a go if it's on iOS. I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, but I don't know, but yeah, okay. It's good.
Interesting.
It's the kind of thing if
Maybe
it
I'll
came out
suggest
on DS, like in the first 6 months of DS coming out, everybody would be raving about it.
That is so true. There are so many iOS games where I kind of feel that way. Like back in 2006, 20 million people would have paid £25 for this. And now people won't even pay like 69p for it.
Yeah, fuck paying any pennies for this really well-made piece of software.
Yeah. The modern world. Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that a lot. Okay, so number 6 is a bit of a sad choice. It's Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS.
Okay. Going back a stage.
Indeed, yeah, I've been playing it a bit recently because I mean, I paid like 35 quid for it back when it came
Mm.
out, and I only ever play through every track once, I think, which is not the way to play Mario Kart. Like that's meant to be like that is barely getting through the tutorial relative to how Mario
Yeah.
Kart works. But I went back and gave it a go, and I don't actually think it's the best one. I think it's quite. I don't know. I don't like the gliding stuff. I just can't get my head around that.
No.
Uh, and I know that's like that's like a 3 or 4 year old opinion now, but yeah, I never quite kind of fell in love with that in the way that a lot of people did because I could never understand how you can actually use the momentum of it in a way that was
Mm.
fair, or I just didn't understand it. It didn't kind of apply to my sort of like understanding of the rule set of Mario Kart. I understand it's in 8 as well, so it's part of that. But basically, I want to get 8 when I've kind of got a minute, and and I'm kind of building myself up for it. I mean, obviously, it's a fine series, but yeah, I don't know. There's a few of the kind of classic tracks in 7 aren't particularly good. I don't think. I particularly think the Rainbow Road is pretty
Mm.
short, pretty poor on 3DS. As pretty as it
Yeah.
looks, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, and that just kind of made a bit of sense to play
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. I mean, now I have 8. I mean, 8 really is marvelous. But it does have the gliding in it as well in 8, but it feels a little nicer, I think, than it did on the 3DS version. And
Yeah,
yeah, it also has the underwater stuff and the brilliant stuff where you go up on the anti-grav stuff and you have to hit each other to get speed boost. It kind of turns into this dodgems thing, which is
yeah.
great. But yeah, I can't. Well, I was going to say I can't see me going back to 7 again, but that's because I lost that 3DS with that copy of that game. So yeah, I'm not going to buy it again.
That's a that's a sobering lesson. Um, I've got to say though, actually, I really like the kind of way you have been talking about it on the podcast, where you're treating it like talking too much about the track specifically is a kind of a spoiler.
Mm.
Like you kind of said you didn't want to talk about it until the DLC comes out again, and I really like that attitude because I think a lot of people are being seeing Mario Kart 8 that way. Like they don't want to spoil it for
Yeah,
people, and it's not a kind of obviously it's not a kind of story thing. It's just a case of what Nintendo has created is so cool and looks just so different to what they've done before. Like it's a real event,
it is. It
and
definitely feels like the first true event for this console. Really, I know they had Mario 3D World and the launch and stuff, but this feels like the first proper essential Wii U game, and then they backed it up. Stuff like that Zelda reveal. It's looking like a much stronger console than it ever did. Shame it's just a kind of higgledy-piggledy mess, but I still like it.
no, same here, man. No, I love their E3 actually. I think weirdly, like owning a PC and a Wii U is kind of like where I want to be
Mm.
at the moment. Kind of catch almost everything that way.
Yeah,
So
I think if I could
yeah,
chuck another 300 quid graphics card in this PC, then I'd be sweet. But unfortunately, it's just kind of hovering at that level where every single game that I play on it is just a pain in the ass to get.
your PC's good,
It's
right?
good.
I think you
It's
paid
good, but
800 quid for.
it's about as powerful as a PS4, I'd say, maybe slightly more, but it's not powerful enough to play the latest games on Ultra without all sorts of fucking fiddling and pausing it every 2 seconds. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just one of those situations. If I chucked in something a bit more powerful, then I could just relax. But yeah, then that pushes it up to far more money than I can afford. But I do love
Okay.
the
Yeah.
big old box.
Indeed. Indeed. So yeah, I'm kind of like quite happy with that kind of combination of stuff, and I really like Nintendo's attitude towards the Wii at the moment. Not sure about the whole toys thing. I know you kind of sounded quite convinced by that on last week's episode.
I can't remember anything that happens in my life before the exact moment I'm in anymore. That's what having a child does to you. What did I say?
Yeah. Well, basically, I think the way you put it was that you kind of the toy stuff will make them a lot of
Mm.
money, and because you've got a kid in a couple of years, he'll be at the stage where he'll be like, daddy, I want these toys. I've never met your kid, so I don't know if he actually sounds like that or not. Probably not. He sounded a lot more eccentric than that when you're describing him to me, but eccentric in a good
Yeah.
way, of course. And so I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if that stuff will kind of take off at Nintendo or not, but it's cool that they've got this confidence to try different things to the console manufacturers, and I personally kind of love. I think Nintendo have the kind of strongest first party titles of
Mm.
anyone, which is a good job because they don't have many
Yeah,
third
they
party
don't have
titles.
any.
Yeah. So yeah, no, good for them. And and Mario Kart 7's decent, but 8 seems to be the one that everyone's talking about. And no one talked about 7 in the way they're talking about 8 now.
No, 8's just very special indeed. As much as I like 7 and enjoyed it at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Cool.
But yeah.
Okay, where are we? My number 6, I believe so.
Yep.
Okay, this is another one from Twitter. So thank you very much for the people that sent me some really cool browser games this week. It's actually much more interesting than talking about like middle of the road console games. This one's called K.O.L.M. I don't know what that stands for, and you play as a robot that's just kind of woken up. I don't know if it's had an accident or something like that. It's just woken up and it hasn't got any legs and it can't see properly. But the whole thing's shot through like security cameras. But it's basically a 2D platformer, but it's kind of everything's shot through a series of security cameras, which is kind of like it's just a stylistic choice more than anything. And you start off and your dad's having a go at you the whole time. It's basically calling you shit and you can't do all these things. And you're moving through this world trying to find the different parts of your body to get back to health. So first of all, you find your legs, and then you can move properly. Then you find your eyes, and then you can see the game properly. And then you find like your leg springs, so you can jump, and then it goes on and on. I didn't get to the end of it. I'm sure it's not that long. Interesting game, good stylistic choice. I mean, 2D platformers do work well in browsers because everybody has arrow keys. And when you design them like this, they don't have to be as precise as a Mario or something like that, or a Meat Boy, which of course itself was a browser game. But a cool game. It's not something that's blown my mind or anything like that. But I always admire something that that comes with a strong idea and doesn't piss about trying to execute it over a long period of time. They're trying to tell a very quick and interesting story. Or more an idea, more like a kind of tone and a theme rather than a specific story. But they executed it really well, and it plays fine, and just good stuff. You can't really complain about shit like that.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It looks like the art style it says black and white mainly, right? And kind of like cubes and stuff.
Your bits of colour here and there.
Indeed, and and it seems like that actually in the screenshots where it's got color and it's illuminated a bit. It's actually really a pretty game,
and it's one of those things where you're playing it and it's a functional kind of 2D video game, but the what they've done over the top of it in terms of narrative just makes the whole thing way more intriguing. It's more than the sum of its parts, because otherwise it is just a fairly base 2D platformer that you've played many times. But I mean, like I said, it's not mind blowing. It's not like need to go and put this at the top of your list or anything like that. But another cool recommendation. I mean, really strong recommendations this week.
Yeah, it's cool. I actually really want to check that out. That looks like my sort of game. Looking at some of the story stuff, it just looks kind of like really kind of unusual and a little bit weird. Like when you reach the end of a level, it says "Mother approves." Is that right? Yeah,
it's a weird one for sure.
I don't want to say I like that, but that sort of, that certainly suggests there's some interesting minds at work behind that sort of game.
Yeah, it's an odd one, but it's cool. I don't know what it stands for though.
No idea. Should we make something up?
Kings of Little Men.
Leon.
Kings of Leon. Men.
Kings of Leon, Mister. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. I might check that out. So my number 5 is Far Cry 4. I think I was playing this on PC, but again, I was playing with a PS4 controller, so my brain was muddled as to what I was actually seeing. But nonetheless, it was clearly not the last gen console version of Far Cry. It was pretty. I actually got to sample the co-op stuff.
Oh, cool.
This is me being Mr. E3 Dick guy. Good. No, it's cool. Well, actually, most of the stuff I played at E3 was Ubisoft because they had most of the games out, and most of EA's games I think were like in beta or
they were like
online.
Sort of ideas, weren't they?
Yeah. Which I did like their conference, but it was still like, I don't know if I actually learned anything about the next Mass Effect. Yeah, and I know there's going to be an AT-AT in Star Wars, but I already knew that. Anyway, and so I thought Ubisoft had a really good showing, like having kind of like games on hand to kind of show what they're up to this year. I think was really cool. The co-op stuff in Far Cry is really interesting. I think if there's something that it lacked in Far Cry 3, it was that when you went into a base and stuff happened, it never felt that systemic to me. Like in terms of like the actual stuff that played out felt pretty straightforward. Like that might just be me, John. I don't know about you, but got that with Blood Dragon as well.
Yeah, I played both of them a lot in Pass the Pad with my brother, which is the like 1 or 2 times a year we get to do stuff like that. And we quite often do the same thing, you know, like the same base over and over and try and do something outlandish, die, pass the pad, and you'd see it play out in completely different ways every time. So I have to say, especially in Blood Dragon, with the added element of the big fucking dragons, some crazy stuff did happen. But I can imagine that being amplified quite a lot by having another person actually in the game with you.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that's why I didn't get it, because I never played it with another person in the room. So in Blood Dragon, it was like kind of luring the dragon. I know it will turn up in this many seconds, and that's me being way too cynical about a game that I thought was actually really cool. Yeah, and I did actually. There's a lot of experimentation I liked in that game that had nothing to do with the actual game itself. Like I had this weird, and I told the producer this. I don't know why. I was jet lagged. That's why. Because I was stood by like there's a bit in Blood Dragon where there's this boat that's got a load of grenades on it, right? And there's like and a bunch of sharks swimming around, and the boat is kind of like half dipped into the water. And I kept walking into the water to try and lure the sharks, and when they came close, I ran out again. And I must have done that for about 2 hours. And I don't know why, but I was just like there again and again. There was a mission objective at first. I did that, and then I just messed around with robot sharks for like a few hours, and I loved inviting that kind of chaos. And with co-op, there's like so much kind of capacity for that in Far Cry 4. Like I was playing with our PC Gamer US editor Evan. He was playing. Basically, we got in and we did it. We did the demo twice. You kind of raid this fort. It's pretty straightforward, but the fort is laid out in a way in which it's got loads of hiding spaces. It's got a mortar kind of cannon, and enemies sort of drop in. It's almost like a mini horde mode that plays out when you're within the base. He went in on elephant back first of all, and I went in all guns blazing. I died about 3 times. I did. He died like once, I think. And we failed to get the mission done. At the end, there's a battle with a helicopter, and yeah, I was kind of like running in and out of these sort of like villagey kind of corridors, and to kind of like try and take out enemies, but doing it kind of full on like that, I wasn't really kind of getting the advantage on any enemies. We did it again in a kind of silent way, no elephant, like took the kind of like grappling hook across the over the wall, which was really cool. Had this kind of crossbow, and we did it perfectly without taking a single hit. We wiped out loads of enemies, took out the helicopter, never got hit once. And it played out so differently when it was silent. Like just choosing a rooftop to pick a vantage point from, like the game gives you real scope to do that stuff. And this was just like one small scenario of kind of loads. Doing that with a friend, I think, is really going to be quite something.
Yeah, I can't wait for that game, man. When they just everything they showed from it, I was pumped straight away. And then when they said that you can have a co-op partner in there as well, I was like, forget about it. That's my game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. Definitely one I want to see on. Definitely one I'm pleased not to be playing on last gen consoles. Actually, like I think it's just going to take fantastic on next gen and PC.
Yeah, Far Cry 3 was one of the first games I actually bought for the PC when I bought it, because I enjoyed, especially like I played it for review originally, and then I played a lot more of it with my bro, and that's where I really kind of fell in love with that game. And then so I had to buy on PC, and it just looks so much better. It's crazy. So I'm excited to play it on probably PS4 and end up with it on, I would have thought.
Yeah, but just like kind of knowing like there's I mean like the water looked amazing in Far Cry 3, but just kind of like knowing you're in a completely different sort of surrounding for this with the mountains and stuff. Like I had this kind of like obviously this crossbow gun that can fire these what I assume are tranquilizer darts. I just wanted to see what happened if I fired one at an elephant, but I didn't. For some reason, I felt like I couldn't do that in front of Ubisoft. I really wanted to see if it kind of kicked off and then just sort of fell over or something, because I bet there's some kind of like systemic response to that. And I kind of like I can't wait to kind of incite that sort of chaos and see what happens with a completely different set of wildlife. That's what was really cool about Far Cry 3.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man, I'm very, very excited for that. That's one of the 2 games that I'm most excited for this year, I think.
Indeed.
Cool. Okay. Crashing back down to earth then with my number 5. To be fair, this game's wicked. It's called Wonderputt, another browser game. Or if you want to play any of these, just Google the names of them. Obviously, I don't need to tell you how to do that. You're a person, you can do that. Wonderputt, another recommendation. This is a really cool like mini golf game. Have you ever heard of this?
Actually have heard the name before.
Yeah, I had as well, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
It seems to take place on it's kind of an isometric world. I guess it kind of reminds me of how Marble Madness looks, or even something like Wet Tricks. You know, that kind of shot from that angle
Yeah.
type deal.
Almost looks like a kind of like a 3D Mega Drive game. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
And all it is just a really. I'm trying to think. It's mini golf with a cursor, but the world shapes itself for each hole and like does really cool things. So like the first hole, a bunch of bombs hit it and these craters appear, and that's the first hole. Then the second hole, like it rains on this patch of grass, and then all this grass grows, and then the thing like aliens zap up these cows, and it makes the hole happen in front of you, and then the next one
Cool.
like a fucking ski slope appears, and it's just really cool. Like it plays really nicely. It's really fun to play, but it's so stylish. Yeah, I just wanted to play more of it. Really, I gave it a good little chunk of time, but I just wanted to go back to it. It's just kind of thing that everything about it is just awesome. Really, just
That's
really,
cool.
it looks lovely. It's so clever, really fun to play. Just the type of thing that, yeah, it's just really just I absolutely loved it. But yeah, it's as limited as it can be as a crazy, as crazy golf. But I couldn't really imagine you being able to do crazy golf a lot better on a video game system.
No, like that looks really
It
cool
is
to
very
me.
cool.
And for some reason, I guess I'm kind of getting like a tonal flash of like everybody's golf in there, just in terms of it taking golf not so seriously. Although obviously it looks like its own thing
Yeah, I mean
visually.
it's even more so than that. It's more just about expressing what you can do with kind of like video game clay, if that makes any sense. Just I love the fact
Yeah.
it's just when games, not all games should do this by any stretch of the imagination. Many games shouldn't, in fact. And some games like Watch Dogs, when they do stuff like this, actually do it to the detriment of their own tone. But in some games, when they just throw the rulebook away, it works really well, and this is definitely one of those games like that. DMC Devil May Cry is always the one I point to, where they basically establish narratively a situation in what they call in game limbo, which is basically just like we can do whatever the fuck we want now, and
Yeah.
then just run with it and run with it and run with it, and it works so well. Whereas to go back to Watch Dogs, I actually hated it when you're jumping around on flowers and doing stuff as a spider or whatever. But yeah, for this game, I kind of lost my train of thought. Yeah, this is a good game. You should play Wonderputt.
I've downloading it right now by Damp Nat Limited
Oh, is
apparently.
it? Good
Yeah,
on them.
all power to the Nats. Yeah, it's not 69p on iOS, so that seems like well worth it. It just looks really pretty. I'm well up for that.
Yeah, it's great and free on a browser if you don't want to drop the dollar.
Oh well, I just did. Now I feel like a massive chump.
You're
Nah, it's all good.
Damp Nat Limited, so no, don't worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah, all power to the guys. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that now. Okay, cool. My number 4 is Grand Theft Auto 5.
I thought this was going to be on your list. I heard you were playing it. Well, I say I heard. You tweeted about it.
Well, that is the modern
from you,
equivalent
yeah.
of overhearing it, isn't it? I overheard it somewhere. Yeah, it's basically I saw that trailer for what was apparently the PS4 version at E3, and I mean, it was really something. I'm very anti the kind of re-release of games on next gen consoles that people bought like a year or 2 years ago. I cannot stand that trend. I understand why people, if you're buying it for the first time, then yeah, buy Tomb Raider on PS4, absolutely. But I don't see why you'd want to buy. I don't get the mentality of wanting to buy The Last of Us twice.
Yeah.
As pretty as it looks, like that's just a personal thing. You know, you might have a completely different view on it.
I basically do agree with you. However, on that specific game, I am going to get it again because I wanted to play through it again, and I thought, okay, well, I might as well play through it. And I haven't played the DLC yet, so. But that's more of like a specific case in point, which I'm guessing is what this is going to be as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same deal, really. Which is, I felt like that Grand Theft Auto 5 demo almost kind of proposed a slightly different game to me. It was almost like it almost looked like a remake. It looks so graphically advanced compared to what exists now. Like the detail on like trees and like the new animals and even the music playing in the background, like kind of implies that it's going to be a really different deal. Like in terms of like the AI is going to be different, the traffic's going to be
that difference in the traffic on the main freeway, which is crazy.
That is crazy, and that to me transforms it into a different game. That is no longer you're playing the same game with pretty textures. The trees and the kind of buildings, just the texture detail is just, I mean, so obviously a step up from what exists on consoles, and it's really tricky to go back to the other version now. As amazing as it is, and it is amazing. Like going through the kind of like jaggy city by comparison, and like just knowing that in a few months all this is going to look so much better. Really excited to play it on PC. That's where I'll get it, I think.
Sure.
And then just I basically I think I'm going to upgrade my PC just for that, because I want to see that city at its very best.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, what if they end up doing Red Dead that way? I couldn't handle it. That'd be too good. That'd be too good. Man, that'd be amazing.
But I think they're going all out with that, aren't they, and doing a new one.
Yeah, I think you're right. But nonetheless, demonstrates what their kind of engine can do with next gen, which is fantastic. So I love it. And now I've kind of reached the point where I've done everything in it, like everything that I consider of value. Like I'm not going to go around and do tasks for the Doppler cinema who say we've been robbed for the third time in 3 weeks. Can you go track down the robber? No. Like if Donald Trump's company was robbed, Donald Trump was not go out and hunt them down with a handgun. You know what I mean? Like I'm the CEO. The CEO doesn't go and fetch alcohol for the basement. Do you know what I mean? Like so all that stuff isn't really of interest, but the I love just getting in a military jet, which I've got one for each character now, because that's like a real kind of like status symbol in GTA, managing to get those things. Just kind of flying over the airport and blowing up kind of like 747s on the runway and stuff with a machine gun, then kind of like going through the Goodyear blimp. Every time I just think of It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube. Mm-hmm. I think every single time I kill that, destroy that thing, I'm singing It Was a Good Day to myself, and it read Ice Cube's a pimp, and then I blow it up. And it's weird, like it's almost a kind of ritual now. I start a car chase, get to the airport, take off before the police can arrest me, blow up airplanes, blow up the Goodyear blimp, and then fly to the military base and just rocket the shit out of it. And it's brilliant. That's the classic peak of GTA for me, and it's still fantastic. But I've got real envy now seeing it on running on next gen.
Yeah, I've been meaning to finish it, as I've mentioned many times on this show, and didn't because of the bug that screwed me over. But then as soon as I saw that, I was like, damn, do you know what? I'm now stuck, because do I want to play through all the story again to get there?
Yeah.
Not really. I just kind of wish that I could just jump into where I am, but on the next gen version. But maybe there'll be like a mission skip or something. That'd be good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like I had a friend who had the same bug as you. And I've had bugs like that in games before, or I've wiped my save and things like that, and it's just draining to do it again. It's a very modern problem, but nonetheless, so this actually presents you with a kind of perfect solution for
Hopefully,
that.
if there is some sort of, if I could jump into where I was, then perfect.
This is like free money for Rockstar, isn't it?
Yeah.
They've already sold like 25 million copies. They're probably going to sell another 15. Just God, insane, but justified if the game really does feel so different.
Definitely.
Yeah. Can't wait,
man.
No,
I'm definitely going to pick that up again, just to experience that city. So I just like walking around that city. I've talked about that before. I mean, the details, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, Watch Dogs City is pretty impressive, I think. It looks great, moves smoothly, feels at times like one of the better open worlds. Most open worlds are kind of shit. But yeah, GTA 5 is just a completely different level to that. Completely different level.
Yeah. Totally agree, man.
Okie dokie. My number 4 is another browser game, last one of the list this week. It's called Give Up Robot, another recommendation. And this is actually a game made by Matt Makes Games, who made Towerfall, which is an amazing video game. And this is a 2D platformer with a grappling hook, where the whole time it has a kind of Portal-esque computerized voiceover basically telling you to give up the whole time and the fact you're shit, and it's just a really tricky grappling hook based platformer. And yeah, this guy has a real handle on how to make 2D games fun. The grappling hook mechanic is tricky but very enjoyable when you get it right. The levels quickly scale up to being very, very difficult, and is just a really cool game, an excellent piece of work. I, for some reason, based on nothing but ignorance, thought that Towerfall was this guy or this team's only game, and Ascension, like, the second, and he'd never really made anything before. But going on his website, he's actually made an absolute shitload. So I'm going to go and try kind of play through his back catalogue. So cool that the world exists now that you can do that kind of thing. People are kind of self-teaching themselves how to get to a level where they're making something as accomplished and 9 out of 10 scoring is Towerfall, and you can just see the progression. Like you can do it with Edwin McMillan and a few different people. You can just see where they started and how they got there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, it's really cool that you can just track down the games that got them there so simply now, because all that stuff is archived on like Congregate, or I assume you played this on Adult Swim, is that right?
Yeah, it was actually on Adult Swim, but it was through his website, I believe.
Yeah. So I really like what they're doing in games, actually, Adult Swim.
Definitely.
And I think you've talked about them a few times on this podcast, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Chet's probably played more stuff on there than I have. But yeah, when we first heard that Adult Swim were doing games, I kind of just thought it was going to be some comedy bollocks and didn't really pay attention to it. But no, they're doing a lot of interesting stuff over there. It's kind of very different to the other stuff that they do. But
indeed,
yeah, this is very cool.
No, it's cool. I should check that out. Towerfall was very, very cool.
Towerfall's magnificent, man. I love that game. Absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, so it's like it's cool to kind of like track that progression.
Yeah.
I'm actually reading the comments that people have left behind on the Give Up Robot on Adult Swim, and some of them are pretty good actually. For everyone that didn't beat this game, you are terrible. Got to level 42, raged and started again. Oh my God, learn how to spell. Everyone got to level 42, weirdly.
I didn't get that far.
I don't know if that's some kind of like reference to the band, but
that'd be a pretty,
nonetheless,
pretty out there reference.
It really would. No, that's cool. I actually appreciate the kind of like amount of kind of browser and kind of iOS stuff you've been bringing to this podcast, because I've just been bringing kind of like raw commercial E3 nonsense. Like you can always hear the dubstep from my options. But
as I've always said, I like big games, and I like big games that when they're done well, I don't get too upset about meat-headed stuff. And I think it's so broad now compared to where it was a few years ago. We've been doing this job for years now, and I think when we were sort of around the time you'd started, I was maybe about 2 years in, I think, and things were a lot worse then. There wasn't this other side of all these interesting games. There was just the dumbass stuff. There were still interesting games like Ico and shit, but it was mainly just dumbass.
Yeah, at the risk of being like too nostalgic to an audience of people who probably don't care about you or me, John, I do think that that's a good point actually, because back then my interpretation of that sort of game was that it wasn't really a PC thing as much. I know that obviously like the indie scene was kind of like booming on PC, but the bigger games at the time I think were things like Everyday Shooter on PS3 and like the start of the Pixel Junk games. Like those were about as interesting as it got a few years ago, and now the scene is so different. I mean, some people say there's just too much product out there, and like there's not been any kind of indie breakthrough this year because there's just been so many games. But I don't ever see a kind of scenario where that sort of consumer choice is a bad thing.
No, I don't either. I mean, as long as it's all coming from different sources as well, so it's not like one company is oversaturating the market and not pulling their weight. There's just so much to pick and choose from. That's why I don't get too upset about E3 being a lot of big shooty games, because A, I like big shooty games, and B, there's so the quality of some of this stuff is just as high, just because it doesn't have millions and millions of dollars behind it. I just kind of see it like Hollywood now. Like the most expensive stuff is going to be the superhero movies, and that's just kind of the way the business has gone right now. And do you know what? Good superhero movies are pretty damn good, but so good indie movies, so are amazing TV shows. So I look at it like that. I don't get too upset. I don't. A lot of people are during E3 conferences just like, man, another game with a gun in it, and it's like, well, yeah, they don't want to, or they lose their jobs, so that's what most people play. And look, it's Far Cry, so it looks pretty damn fun, and you have to look beyond the gun as well. I think that's another point.
Yeah, I agree. And also it's a case of, I don't think that indie was completely like that. Like Devolver Digital had a bunch of caravans set up outside the convention center with like a barbecue in the middle. And then in each caravan, they had a different indie developer with their game.
Brilliant.
And I met the co-creator of Hotline Miami there, which was really cool. And like the PS4 stand had like loads of indie games on it as well. And there was like an Indiecade thing going on there. So there's no shortage of them. It's just that they're just not going to grab the same attention as a kind of huge game announcement that's being on stage at the conferences. And
it's more like a TV show now, isn't it? Like those conferences, they're just it's not really the same as what it used to be.
Indeed, yeah. no, I'm fine with it. I think we've got a very good balance.
Could be better,
yeah,
but
that's good.
I'm not going to spend my life moaning that not everything's perfect. I don't like should culture, Sam. I don't like should culture. It's bullshit.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Okay, so my number 3 is Batman Arkham Knight on. This is my last one actually. After this, my choices are a bit weird, but they're all still kind of quite commercial games, but still. Arkham Knight, yeah, I played this. I believe it was on PS4 again. Sorry, on PC again, running with a PlayStation 4 controller. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was so cool. Like getting to sample the Batmobile stuff was the point of this demo. When you start, you kind of use this grappling hook on top of the Batmobile, kind of like reverse it with the stick, and then pull up this ramp, and you use it to kind of like. This might have been in one of the demos at the conference actually, and you kind of like. I haven't seen the Sony conference still because I was actually being at E3. It's actually quite hard to see E3, which is a weird thing to say, but yeah, basically then you kind of like use this kind of like your nitrous and you just boost over this ramp and then like go over this gap and land in this chemical factory where you're fighting these kind of weird robot tanks, which is a bit of a strange thing for a Batman game, but basically I think it's there to give you some interesting feedback loop with the Batmobile that's a bit more action based. But a lot of the cool stuff in the demo was actually puzzle based with the Batmobile. So as an example, I kind of you do this bit where you launch Batman out of the Batmobile straight into this really fast glide. He shatters through this glass, beats up these guys, then has to kind of like crawl through this vent that's kind of like got these steam pipes going. You switch to the remote control Batmobile and you blow up the pipes from outside with rockets, and then Batman can just get through inside. So the Batmobile is just kind of parked outside, but it's kind of used in that way. And then later on in the same bit, you got to get down this elevator shaft, and you use the Batmobile to grappling hook onto the top of the lift shaft, reverse, pull back the lift so Batman can get in it, switch to Batman, get in the lift, switch back to the Batmobile, let go, and then the lift will just go to the bottom of the shaft.
Was it specifically telling you how to do this stuff, or was it left up to your own devices a bit?
Well, actually, I had someone from Rocksteady talking me through it. So he explained how the kind of mechanics of it worked, but I understood that how it could be naturally used as part of the kind of Arkham dynamic with the puzzling and the combat and stuff. So I thought it was really cool. That was the stuff that impressed me much more than the combat, although that was good too. It was just this was a little less obvious a kind of choice of how to use the Batmobile. So it's not just there for kind of like showmanship. But even when it is, that's really cool. Launching Batman out of the Batmobile at a really fast speed, getting him to do like a kind of arc in midair, and then kind of like flying really far because the environment was massive. It wasn't in the open world; it was separate from that. But this environment alone felt about as big as like Arkham Asylum. It was huge. And then just kind of like landing on a guy and starting a combo. It's just so nicely done. And they haven't changed the combat system, right? Like it's still about kind of counters and punches and stuff like that. I don't think they should change it anyway. It's just too delicate the way it is. So what they've done instead is they've layered stuff on top of it. So the Batmobile, if it's nearby and you're beating someone up at the end of a combo, there's an option where you hit 2 buttons and you kind of throw a guy in the air, and the Batmobile will just spam him out of the sky with these kind of like blank bullets. So you just see the turret turn around and just shoot a guy at the end of your combo. Alongside that, you've got contextual attacks with Batman as well in the environment. So you can like jump on a lamp and push that down onto a guy, or like ram someone's head into like a load of fuses and stuff. Just a bit brutal for Batman, like But no, I think it's all really nicely done, because instead of like adding another kind of like combo button for no reason, there's a bit more value to this, I think, and just giving you ways to finish combos that are kind of interesting. So, dude, I think it's going to be amazing, and it looks incredible as well. Like you can see individual bits of rain landing on his cape when he's gliding and stuff like that, and it's just like looks like Blade Runner, man.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, those two games, they're special games. And this one will be as well. I'm very, very pumped. It's next year now, right?
Yep, I assume like early-ish next year, but bit disappointing, but that just seems to be the way of things this year, doesn't it?
Yeah, that Kevin Conroy said it was coming out in January. I love that guy. He just keeps ruining everyone's plans.
Yep, accidentally announced it and then just accidentally announced the release date. Fair enough. All power to him.
Brilliant. Good old Kev. Cool. Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, very excited for that shit. All right, first non-browsery type game on my list is it's actually Battlefield Hardline. The beta's still going. I've been playing a bit more on PS4 this week, and it's fun. I don't have a huge amount to add over what we spoke about last week. We kind of went into quite a lot of detail about how it works. It does feel like a kind of expansion pack. I mean, it really does. It's kind of hard to get away from that, and it's probably not helped by the fact it's just a map and it is just a beta. But it definitely, I mean, looks, feels, sounds like Battlefield, and no bad thing, especially when Battlefield's working, like we said last week, because Battlefield is fun. But those going in expecting something genuinely different, I remember a lot of the talk at first was that why are they even using the Battlefield name? It's like they're using the Battlefield name because it's a fucking Battlefield game down to the letter. It's just some new modes and some new voice work, really. But if you play a lot of Battlefield, as Chet obviously does, the differences are significant enough to make it feel like a different game. And, you know, as much as it kind of sucks in some way that it's another game in an established series, I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with releasing new versions of very good games once a year for £40. It's not really that bad a thing to do. It's up to you whether you buy them or not, and you know, is that getting in the way of this magical game that you were hoping that they'd release? No, it's not. So it just kind of is what it is at this point. These large franchises, I think you can choose to ignore them quite easily now. Like we were talking about before, more so than perhaps you could a few years ago. Like if you don't have any interest in Call of Duty, if you don't have any interest in Battlefield, if you don't have any interest in FIFA or Assassin's Creed, they're easily ignored. I mean, they're going to be. I don't mean that you can pretend they don't exist, because they will be like in your face to a degree. You know, you're going to hear the names, you're going to see the trailers. But I managed to avoid all the I mean, they released 100,000 Watchdog trailers, but I don't think I watched any apart from the very first one at E3 when they revealed it, and maybe one about a year before the game was released. I didn't watch any, so Watchdog still felt kind of fresh when I came to it. So it's kind of easy to not consume all that stuff now. And I think even as someone who just reads websites and magazines, there's so much other stuff to read about and watch YouTube videos on and stuff. I think they're there for the people that want it, and that is a large amount of people. But it doesn't need to bother you if you're upset by these kinds of things, which some people do get upset about.
Yeah, like I'm kind of like I must admit, seeing it in action doesn't seem quite as original a concept to me as it seemed in the first leak trailer, where it looked a lot more like a kind of like proof of concept heist game that was maybe done like a GTA heist. But I definitely don't hold anything against it for being Battlefield. I mean, it's called Battlefield. Yeah. It's, you know, that's fine. And I think that it's an interesting enough thematic spin for people to want a piece of it. And the modes are, you know, seemingly quite different to a lot of the kind of stuff that exists in Battlefield 4. So, yeah, I think it's got a place. I think this is a far more preferable scenario to just having Battlefield 5 out this year.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, like, I mean, we see with Call of Duty, they make what I think is quite a weak effort to differentiate those games by whether they're called Black Ops or Advanced Warfare. They still look kind of the same, to be honest. You know, it's kind of semi-futuristic, but not quite kind of whatever, blah, but Kevin Spacey. Yeah, and, you know, fair enough. If people like those games, that's all right. But if you're going to do a franchise yearly, I like the idea that you're kind of mixing it up thematically with what you're actually doing. So yeah, Cops and Robbers, I mean, doesn't really exist that strongly in a conceptual way, and it's still quite far off being done. The fact that you get to play it now is just a bonus to the modern age, really.
Yeah, completely that, and good fun, great moments in the game, like all great Battlefield games do deliver when they work. And I think, perhaps some people are a bit disappointed that this is what Viscera is doing now instead of doing, you know, perhaps a new IP or something like that. But you know, they did 2 new IPs. One was very good, while the other one was Dante's Inferno, which actually wasn't that bad. But you know, I don't think we needed a second one. And the last Dead Space game was crap. So be happy that they're still making games, because a lot of studios aren't.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't think Dead Space is dead. I should have thought that sentence through a bit more. But yeah, it's one of those things where if it keeps the studio going, I agree. It's kind of just good for everyone. And I also like the idea that although I thought Dead Space 3 was an absolute pile of ass, like you did, John,
Yes.
I do like the idea that the people who made Dead Space in any kind of capacity are having a go at a Battlefield game.
Yeah.
It's almost like this kind of like interesting kind of work swap situation where I'd like to maybe see DICE make a Dead Space game. I don't think that would happen. I think this is more through like necessity and money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
What's
nonetheless,
strange is that the other guy who made Dead Space is now making Call of Duty, which is the guy who moved over to Sledgehammer, isn't it? So yeah, they're now competing with each other in the big boy shooter field.
Indeed, yeah. Odd, but quite cool. I think we might be awash with these games, maybe a few too many of them when there's a Battlefront and a Battlefield 5 released maybe within like a... In fact, maybe their plan actually is to release Battlefield next year and then Star Wars the year after.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then yeah, that sounds like that's probably quite likely actually. But yeah, nonetheless, for now, I think it's there's clearly an appetite for this stuff, so all power to them.
Yeah, that's it. Like I say, it's easily ignored. There's just go and play some Towerfall or some, Ethan Carter, or whatever the fuck's coming out on PC soon.
Or Paperama. Yeah. Okay, cool. My number 2 is XCOM Enemy Unknown on iPad.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is a bit of a weird one. Like, I recently just come off a massive Hearthstone kick where that game became far too annoying for me to enjoy anymore, even though I appreciate how much value it gave me in like 20 hours when I paid not a penny for it. Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you, Blizzard. Appreciate that. But I wanted to play something like... All the games I own on iOS now are kind of like credible ports of decent games on other formats. Yeah. Like I've got KOTOR and stuff like that. But XCOM is the one that is just perfect on iPad. I don't know if you've played it on touchscreen, but...
No, I've not. I've only played it on Xbox 360.
Yeah, and it works really well on there as well, just because like the UI is just kind of like perfectly tuned for whatever format you're using it on. It's just really simple to use, right? And yeah, I think I'm near the end now. I think I've screwed it up by not launching enough satellites soon enough, so I don't have enough money coming in to actually kind of reach the end. But nonetheless, I'm kind of just enjoying sending people I used to work with into battle.
Am I in there?
Yes, you are in there. A few of our friends are dead. Yeah. Then there's a little kind of like gravestone and bagpipes playing for Simon Miller and David Lynch, which no doubt they'll appreciate listening to this. But yeah, it's really cool. Like, I've got my girlfriend in there as well, and there's this kind of like weird kind of meta game I've got where she's quite interested in my progress and making sure that she doesn't die. And so I'm quite enjoying that because it's a hard enough game as it is, but structuring it so A, I don't die, and B, she doesn't die, means that my tactics are kind of based entirely around that. But my God, what a great strategy game it is. Like, it's just got the right amount of depth in every area. And while the maps become a bit repetitive, it's fantastic. Like, I honestly, I've just played hours of it on iOS. I think it's perfectly suited for this format. The kind of 20-minute chunk levels, perfect. Just perfect for whatever. Is an iPad a handheld? I suppose it is.
It depends how big your hands are, I guess.
Yeah, well, mine are sort of medium. Didn't need to know that really, but but yeah, no, I think it's fantastic, and I really hope they bring Enemy Within to iPad as well. I'd like to get some mechs going on here.
Yeah, I'd like to play that in any capacity. Yeah, I bailed on that game, unfortunately, about 3/4 of the way through, and I wish I hadn't. I don't know if I do still have it, but I just kind of backed myself into a corner because I didn't really understand the out of fighting get part side of the game for ages. I was just like, with the scientists talking to you and stuff, I was like, I don't really know what you're saying to me. Just shut up and let me go and have a fight. And then I realised soon, after a few hours, it's like, I really need to listen to these people because otherwise I've just screwed everything up. And then by the time I started to really get my head around how the whole game worked, I backed myself into such a terrible corner. Like, everyone had left, and no one liked me anymore. And so I just killed the world. But I did have my first psi troop, or whatever you call them, like psychic troop, was George Costanza. So,
excellent.
He was just blowing people up and possessing people with his mind and stuff, which was pretty good. But yeah, I love that. I love the stories that happened in that game systemically. Just so good.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I mean, there's not a lot of character creation choices in there, particularly for female characters, actually. Like, I've created 3 of the people I knew at work, and they are the exact same character model with 3 different coloured hair.
Right.
like with fringes. Like there's no difference whatsoever. And male character choices aren't a lot better actually. Some of the haircuts are just ludicrous. But yeah, it gives you just enough self-expression to make all that stuff matter.
Yeah.
And because you can't work out the nationality, you can't. I don't think you can change the nationality of your characters. It
No, I don't
means you
think you
have.
can.
It means you have John Denton from Nigeria
Yeah.
and Dave Shaw from Switzerland. It's just like, and I quite like that stuff. Like it's just kind of eccentric in the right way. Um, and yeah, the metagame stuff is quite tricky. Like understanding how the out of mission stuff and economy things work. And by the time you figure that out, you can often be hoisted via your own petard.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, yeah, a fantastic iOS port. And if you've never played it, it's one of the best strategy games of the last few years for sure.
Definitely, man. I don't have an iOS device capable of playing that game, unfortunately. But yeah, I do need to play the DLC. It's just so hard. Like, when do you play these games? I don't have any time to play anything. But yeah, what a game! What a game!
Indeed.
I wish I'd spent more time playing that than some of the crap that I played over the last year and a half, or whenever it came out.
That's good, man. You playing the crap is the flavour of this show.
That's true. That's true.
Yep.
Crap
Indeed.
flavour. Okay, here we go. Where are we? That was your number 2, yeah?
Yep.
Sweet. My number 2 is a video game called Destiny by a studio called Bungie. And man, very excited to talk about this game. So I would if someone asked me, as people do, what's your favourite game of all time? If there is someone who doesn't know about games, I always say Halo. If there's someone who does know about games, I normally say Rez, which is probably technically true. But you don't really have to explain what Rez is to like your wife's friend's husband or something, like when you're in the bar. You just don't want to have to do that. So Halo's always the easy choice. So yeah, but I mean, that game kind of did massive things for me when I was like 19 when it came out. Really kind of opened my eyes to what action games could be. It was such a level beyond anything else I'd played. Like I say many times, I didn't have a PC when I was gaming growing up. So yeah, Halo just kind of blew mine and many millions of other people's minds. And basically, Bungie have basically not put a fuck wrong for me since then, apart from some elements of the campaign of Halo 2. An underrated campaign, in my opinion. Like, some of the levels with the Arbiter are absolutely fucking amazing in Halo 2.
Yeah.
Get some grief. But regardless, anyway, on a tangent, this is their new game, and I didn't really understand what it was at all. But I was like, well, I'm going to play it because it's Bungie, and it's going to be amazing because it's Bungie. But I don't really know what it is. And having played the alpha on PlayStation 4 this weekend, I can now, I think, explain what it is in very simple terms. It's Halo mixed with a game like Fallout / Skyrim, but more Fallout in space with MMO elements. So it kind of has a World of Warcraft element. But you know all the shit stuff about MMOs that nobody wants to do, like clicking and wizards. It doesn't have any of that stuff. Actually, it does. It does have wizards in it. For some reason, they're called moon wizards in the bit that I played, but that doesn't matter. Basically, it's like an infinite Halo set in an amazing world that you can just walk around at your own pace and discover. The first part of the alpha is a mission, so you get dropped on the world and you get a marker to go to, so you just kind of go there, and it's kind of a corridor-based shooting mission with Peter Dinklage talking to you, so he plays the ghost thing. It's one of those floaty things that's in Halo. It's just the same.
This has already been going viral, hasn't it? The Peter Dinklage voice acting stuff.
Yeah, it's not very good, but the lines aren't very good, and maybe I don't know. It was not like so bad that it upset me. It's just he's such an amazing actor. It's kind of weird that it's so wooden. But anyway, the mission is very. It's kind of a limited mission. You go through some corridors, open a door, shoot some baddies, shoot a few more baddies, then this kind of like boss baddie comes out, and it's kind of hard. And that's it. And I think if someone jumped in and played that, I still really enjoyed that because straight away it felt like I was playing Halo. And I just loved the combat and the feel of Halo so much that I liked it anyway. But you play that and you think, okay, well, kind of what is this game? If it's like Halo, but it has like Borderlands numbers coming off the baddies, and you might have played that in co-op and you might not have. But then you can unlock in the game's menu something called Explore, which puts you into basically the same place that you started that level on, but lets you explore it in a completely open world. And it's actually really quite a large environment. It's just in Russia in the game, and there's going to be many of these open worlds that you can kind of fly to in your spaceship from a menu, Mass Effect style point of view, rather than physically flying there. But for an alpha, this is a good large chunk of map. And in that, it will be sporadic enemies at different levels are dotted about that you can just go and fight. Some will be much higher than your level, so they kind of mess you up. And then there's missions all over the place, signified by glowing beacons. And you go up, and some might just be, can you clear out this area? But then, and I was thinking, okay, well, this is just an alpha. It's just stuff like this. I'm still really enjoying it because the combat feels so nice. But then one was like, okay, we need to go and find like this weird enemies causing some sort of server problems or something like that. So we need to go and take it out. And I was like, okay. And then it sent me through a tunnel, and then I realised that what I thought was a tiny, not tiny area, but a relatively modest open world area. Actually, you went through a building and you realise it's fucking huge, and it's like 6 times bigger than what I thought it was, which is amazing to be honest. And yeah, this whole mission that you go through is superb. You just end up in this huge open area, and it's being patrolled by these different enemies, and it's like snipers on roofs, and it feels like when you go out into the big areas in Halo, and like battles are kicking off, and then like there's other people, real people in that world, and they're having their own battles, and you can go up and join with them, and salute them and dance with them and things like that, and then go off and continue on your mission, which is amazing. And then like I got past that mission, went back out, and then something called a public event happened where this giant tank came in, this spider tank, and all these different people were shooting it from different teams, and I just thought, this is absolutely amazing. I could play this forever. And then I played maybe a bit more of the single/co-op player stuff, and I just kind of thought, I want to put this down and wait for it to come out. I'll play the beta as well when it comes out in July, but this is something to savour, I think. And I sunk a few hours into it for sure, but I didn't want to absolutely exhaust the area in the alpha and see every little inch of it, because I wanted to do that when I can also go to other worlds and enjoy the game in its fullest.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds really cool. I mean, I've seen loads of people talking about it over the last weekend or so. Not coming out on PC, so PC gamer, with so many of its kind of like roots in kind of, in PC gaming, like it's a first-person shooter MMO. It's a bit disappointing it's not coming out on PC, but nonetheless, like it just looks like a really impressive piece of work. And like, if that's one area you're moving through, then how big is the actual game?
Enormous, I think.
Yeah.
Enormous. I mean, they've been making this game for years, and I know that Activision are pouring like an absurd amount of money into this game as well.
Yeah.
They're going hard. This is like they want this game to have the impact that the first Halo has. You can tell, like they believe in this game so much, and I'm not surprised from what I played. I thought it was amazing. And I love Halo combat. I love it. I think it's like nothing's ever come close to it in terms of single-player shooters. I like other single-player shooters. Some of them are fantastic, but nothing's ever even come remotely close to the Halo makes you feel like a hero, man. That's what it does. It makes you feel like a hero. It makes you feel like a superhero. It makes you feel like you can do things that are impossible. You're constantly clutching victory from the jaws of defeat. And Destiny has that as well, plus all of this breadth. It's just infinite Halo. That's what I'm calling it. Also, I played there's also in the alpha there was a competitive multiplayer, which let you play an equivalent of domination mode from Call of Duty. 3 points you have to capture. It was fine. It felt kind of like Halo multiplayer with slightly less time to kill the people. To be honest, I was like, this isn't as good as Titanfall, is it? It's not. So I'm going to go back to. I think where the game's going to shine is in this kind of MMO open world space, and there's a story and these strike missions and all these different things you can do within it, and loot and different weapons and weapon upgrades, and it's just huge. It's absolutely huge. And most games like that, you walk around clicking things. This game, you go around playing Halo in it. God damn.
Wow. That's amazing, man. Like I think that's gonna be massive at the end of this year.
I if another game, and I've played some great games this year already, if this isn't my game of the year, I'll be astonished. I'll be astonished. Something either goes very wrong with this game, or something else comes out that's even better somehow. But I'm sure it will be amazing.
I don't think anything else can have quite the same mix of stuff. No. And it's a pretty quiet year now, relatively speaking. So it's theirs for the taking for sure.
It is.
Yeah. It's been 4 years since we played a Bungie game. That's a long time.
It is.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, cool. I'm very jealous. I wish I was playing that myself, but I don't really want to play it on PS3 or 360. It's
not really. Although apparently they're doing serious work on those consoles as well.
Yeah.
But it's a next gen game.
In my head, it just looks like a Spectrum game on.
Yeah.
But yeah, nonetheless, very very cool. Pumped by that completely. That sounds fantastic. A lot of kind of like cool PS4 share images going around at the weekend as well. People just taking pictures of views and stuff.
Just like it's got the day-night cycle as well in it, and like it just feels amazing at night. And then the sun comes up, and then like the way the snow falls, and like and you can summon this kind of land speeder thing at any point to just fly around. That feels amazing. And then just seeing like real life people in the distance having a fight with bad guys, and you can come and join in, and you've got these powers as well that you can use. Like the character I use had this big like ground pound thing which smashes everything, and then it's on a cooldown, but it has like RPG elements, but it's such an action game. It's so Halo. It's unashamedly Halo. I don't think they needed. That's something they didn't need to fix, really.
Oh man, that sounds so cool.
I
love that.
It's very special. Even from just an alpha, it's very special.
Yeah, see, I wasn't a huge fan of Halo 4's single player. I'm just kind of so ready for something like this, the next stage of that type of shit.
Like Halo 4 was a good effort from a new team, but these are the guys, these are the masters.
Indeed, no, good for them. Awesome, man. Well, my number one is a bit of a weird one actually. I've chosen Fallout New Vegas. Yeah, there is no doubt I've been playing this the most over the last week. I've played 10 hours of it just over the weekend while jet lagged, and like slowly drinking cheap wine. It's not nearly as depressing as it sounds. Actually, I was just pleased to be drinking wine, but nonetheless, I don't know what led to me playing this other than just by omission, really. Like, did you ever play this back in the day? Were you ever much of a fan of Fallout 3?
I got to New Vegas. Did maybe 3 or 4 hours within New Vegas, and then kind of just wound down my time in there. I really liked it though.
Yeah, like it's storytelling wise, like really interesting compared to Fallout 3. Like, whereas that really, I mean, these are all 4-year-old opinions now. Basically, I do apologise, but whereas that was very much like you play almost like a kind of chosen one type character in that scenario. Not quite, but Liam Neeson, your dad, is out there somewhere, and your goals are pure, even if the way you get there are not. Like, there's a definite ending you're working your way towards that's has a huge significance on the world. In this case, you just play a delivery guy, right? Yeah. And you are in a world of dicks, and you yourself can be a complete dick in the midst of that. And so I like how morally it contrasts to Fallout 3. Obviously, it's done by Obsidian, so it's a bit of a different deal. I was disappointed with New Vegas, as I'm sure many people were, that you get there and you can only walk, like, you can see like one casino per area because they obviously can't load the whole thing. Not that I hold it against the game too much, but I never felt like I saw those kind of walls in the same way with Fallout 3. I felt like it was done in a kind of much more organic way. But nonetheless, like I'm really enjoying it. Like I'm trying to ruin every side quest basically by turning someone who set me the quest against me. And I'm just trying to see how the game reacts to that. And it's actually reacting to the game in a really cool way. There's a bit where you basically have the choice to turn on or off this kind of this AI robot army that can help this guy control New Vegas, this Mr. House, which you might remember, the computer screen that turns out to be an old man.
My memory, I don't know many things.
This was admittedly a weird choice to number one. And then some guy encourages you not to turn that on and to actually destroy the factory altogether. And what I did instead was I destroyed the factory, I got out, and the guy was like, "Oh, thank you very much for doing that." And I went, "Oh, I'm not working for you, screw you." And he went, "Well, I feel so offended." And I walked off, and then I turned against everyone in the world was turned against me at that point. His guys hated me. The guy who sent me the mission to activate the robots, he hated me too. And the robot AI guy called Yes Man, who encourages you to kind of take the power for yourself.
Right.
He pointed out to me, like, if you were going to piss off all these people, why were you stupid enough to turn off the AI army that you yourself could have used to of control New Vegas? And he was like, because what he says is like, oh, you switched off the robot army. That was meant to be the point of you being there. And it just makes you feel a little bit stupid about it. And I've never had that kind of feedback from a game before.
Yeah,
so
that's really quite impressive.
Yeah, so I've enjoyed that and just wandering through the wasteland, kind of classic Fallout, really. Indeed. Yeah, so...
Yeah, I love Fallout. Fallout 3 is just one of the most amazing things that I've ever experienced in media, really. Just incredible. And New Vegas probably came a little bit too soon, and the first 4 hours I had with it were like crabs just being stuck in the ground, and like you just seeing their claws sliding about and going in circles and things like that. So that didn't really help. But yeah, amazing.
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, and so I think it was a bit of that absence makes the heart grow fonder. I mean, it was because I think I was expecting Fallout to appear in some form at E3, then it didn't.
Yeah.
And then I just realised how much I kind of like missed being in that world. So having New Vegas here just to kind of dive into that, if you've never played it before and you're in the same position, I mean, you really should. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to have time to go back to that one, but yeah, I do hope they do announce a new one.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that with a little bit more power behind it, let's say.
Indeed.
All right then, through to my number one, which is EA Sports UFC, quite predictably. I reviewed this game for Eurogamer, which you can read now, it's on their website, and ended up dropping a 7 out of 10 on it. I played a ton, to be honest, single player, and now the game is out in the States. We're recording this on a Wednesday, so the game's been out in the States since Tuesday. There's plenty of people to play online, and the game is actually better online. So, yeah, I've talked about it before. I've talked about how the different elements of the game work from the demo, and I must say that straight away there's a day one patch on the final version, and a lot of the demo has been cleaned up for the final version. A lot of the physics errors, a lot of the little niggles here and there, stuff about how you can't move each other in the clinch, things like that. A lot of that's been cleaned up, and the final version is definitely feels more finished, and it also kind of shows how rushed this project's been. That they only felt like they had just over a year and a half to go from nothing to final product, which is including building an engine. And yeah, there is a lot of elements of the game where you can feel that it's quite bare bones outside of the cage. You know, there's like a very kind of sparse career mode, which is. It's got like weird FMV footage that pops up, and like fighters just send you, like just the most random fighters just send you a message like, "Hey man, I saw your last fight." It's like, what the fuck are you calling me? It's like, you're not even in the game. But yeah, and then there's like the online mode, which is basically the same as FIFA Seasons mode, where you fight like a season of fights and you're trying to get promoted to white belt to blue belt to purple belt, brown and black. And there are different divisions and stuff. That actually works really well, and it's definitely a game that needs to be played in multiplayer, I think, because the AI just isn't quite good enough to be able to have the types of matches that the game can let you have when you're fighting someone a bit more strategic. The AI just kind of charges you and throws hooks, and you can have some good scraps and some real like brawls with the AI, but you can't really have a strategic fight because it's constantly just pressing forward, swinging at you. Not as good as EA MMA's AI, not as good as probably Undisputed 3's AI, but you can't really slate what is essentially a fighting game, even though it's a sports game, for having a less than perfect single player. You wouldn't do that on Street Fighter, you wouldn't do that on Tekken, so you can't really complain too much here either, I don't think. And it does shine in two-player mode. It's difficult to talk about a game like this because I don't want to go too in depth. And at the same time, I don't want to like patronise people by trying to explain every single facet of the sport either, because it's a very popular sport. It's not as popular as football or something like that, but I think plenty of people do understand the different elements these days. It's not like it perhaps was 5 years ago. So it's kind of striking that balance when I'm talking about the game. And I've certainly found this when I was reviewing it and putting those down in a kind of finite number of words, exactly whereabouts to pitch the level of what you're talking about the game. Not that I'm trying to position myself as some sort of expert, but the fact of the matter is I'm a huge fan, and I do train in the sport, so it's just something to kind of find that balance to talk about, and wondering how much some of the stuff that might niggle me would affect someone who's not as into the sport and just kind of enjoys the spectacle of two amazing looking in the game guys beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah. I really like your review. I thought it's a fantastic piece of work, and you pitched it really. Sorry, man. You pitched it really well. Like I don't watch UFC, though I appreciate the kind of art of MMA, I guess. And I really like what you're saying about how people were doing cartwheel kicks. Like that's a really easy move to pull off, and it's something that's only ever been successfully done like a few times, relatively speaking. And I think you pitched it really well, because you kind of you make the case in a really simple way that there are certain parts of this sport that developers just don't get. Which I think is like really important to point out, because culturally, capturing a sport is part of what EA traditionally does quite well. At least to some degree. Like people might not always feel that way, but certainly with like the Fight Night games, which I assume are from the same developer.
They are. This is the Fight Night team. Yeah,
and I felt like they culturally, I felt like I was actually. It wasn't just the kind of like the quality of the actual boxing. It was the whole kind of like presentation of the entire thing, the commentary. Like it felt very genuine. If you're kind of lacking that, I think that's definitely a fair criticism. And the really technical stuff is actually, like, I think incredibly important to a game like this. Like, I love Fight Night, and I think there's a lineage between those games and EA Sports MMA, and now obviously UFC. I think it kind of sounds really cool. I'm a bit disappointed it's not coming out on PC. I assume there's some kind of reason for that, but no, man, that sounds cool. It's definitely something I still want to check out, even if there's some stuff they're getting wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem is it's a very good like stand-up / kickboxing game. It is good. It has that Fight Night lineage, and they brought in the extra elements of using knees and kicks as well. Really nicely, you can slip punches, you can dodge in and out, you can catch people at the right time, and it sort of knock them reeling, and then send them down to the mat with a flurry of strikes, and that stuff's really good. But one point that I make in the review, and it's the most exciting thing about this sport. I find other things about this sport exciting, but that's kind of a level when you really get into it. But the most obvious and exciting thing about this sport is when one person knocks down the other, and then they flurry on them. They attack them when they're on the ground, and when people don't understand the sport, it looks horrendous. But what you also have to understand is that the guy on bottom who's been knocked down has the chance to defend himself and has the chance to attack from his back. And that moment where the fighter who's scored the knockdown, you can see it, and they're like, fuck, and they just get this huge adrenaline burst, and they sprint, and they're like, bow, this is my chance. And that is just missing from this game. It doesn't have that. And in the past, in EA MMA, which is made by a different team that's actually made down in Florida, they translated that into a button mashing mini game, which wasn't particularly subtle, but it worked really well because it kind of captured that sense of mania, which that moment is. It's just like two people fighting for their lives on opposite ends of the spectrum. In the last UFC game from THQ, they captured that with a kind of protracted mini game. It was a separate system for how the rest of the combat worked, but it wasn't as simple as a button mashing thing. Like one person got a burst of adrenaline, you could see they run and start. The other person kind of had to cover up and dodge on the ground until they recovered. A better approximation than what it has here, which is you can dive on them, but most of the time you just end up swinging thin air and it looks stupid, or you just knock them out clean. And in a real MMA fight, that you don't knock a guy out clean and just stand there. The ref's going to come in and stop you. That's the point. The ref gets you off, and missing that is kind of like missing, I don't know, like in a football game, missing like a free kick into the top corner, or like a beautiful passing move finished with this, just like essence of football type stuff.
Yeah.
And as much as the rest of the game might look great in certain elements, missing that does suck. I'm sure it's going to be a big thing that they address for the next one, because all the criticism is around that right now in this game. There are more technical things, like a lot of the ground, the jiu-jitsu stuff, the grappling stuff. I don't know who the fuck motion captured that, but it wasn't a high-level UFC fighter. It wasn't a jiu-jitsu, even a jiu-jitsu blue belt, let alone jiu-jitsu black belt. There's stuff in this game that just plainly doesn't work in jiu-jitsu, and it's whoever the fuck motion captured it, I don't know what was. There's like a move that you see all the time in this game. It's called a scissor sweep. It's a really, really basic, the first week of jiu-jitsu move that you learn, but one of the things you learn about it is you have to trap the guy's arm in order to do it. I'm not going to go into detail about it. In this game, where UFC level fights, the best fighters in the world, are fighting each other, the animation doesn't show the guy's arm being trapped. So without trapping the guy's arm, basically he can put his hand down and not get rolled over, so he's now the guy on the bottom. That's the basis of all of these types of moves. So you have to trap the guy's arm, right? It's just physics. That sport is just physics. Okay. And in here, you can flip him over and it doesn't trap the arm. Most people, I'm guessing 90% of the people aren't going to notice that, but 10% really, really are, and they're the 10% that are making all the noise, and they're the 10% that go on to influence the other people when it comes to this world. So that sort of stuff is painful to see when it shouldn't be like that. When you've got perhaps guys on the top of that team who love the sport like they should, then that doesn't make it into the final product, quite frankly. And there are multiple things in the grappling game that look like that it just has people that are from that jiu-jitsu world just kind of screaming, banging their heads against the table. It's like, what the fuck is this shit? It looks stupid. But it's nitpicking. He's actually nitpicking because it doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, I could ramble about this game forever. It's very fun. It's very good online, but it's not perhaps the classic it should have been, but the next one might be.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. Like Fight Night Round 3, I thought I never liked that game as much as everyone else. I accepted how kind of realistic it was, but it always felt like a bare bones kind of example of what the tech can do. This feels like very much the same sort of deal.
It kind of is,
yeah. No, it's cool though, man. Like I appreciate having that kind of expert knowledge on the subject and kind of feeding back on that stuff. Like it just makes me wonder if EA really are just targeting it as a kind of casual beat 'em up and aren't as concerned about it being a simulation, but they should be. Like it's.
No, I think they are. I just don't think they've got the. When I was talking to the guys, like I don't want to throw him under the bus, but I was talking to the creative director, and he's the creative director of the last two Fight Nights as well. I was talking, like, stuff was happening as I was playing against him, and I was going, oh, is this going to lead to this? And the look on his face was just of cluelessness, to be honest. When I spoke to the EA MMA guys a few years ago, those guys knew their shit, man. They just knew. They knew as much as me, every fighter, every obscure fighter who fought years ago in Pride in Japan, like the finish of this match from 1999, they were nerds, and that's what you want in charge, the guy in charge of FIFA is a football nerd, and that's important, I think. And that, this guy is obviously a talented creative director, and this game is very good, but he's not the guy. He's not the guy that the fans want in charge.
Yeah.
With that, but I don't want to be harsh about a guy, but it's just true.
Okay. Well, interesting. That's cool. Well, this has been a really long episode, hasn't it?
I think so, yeah. It's cut into a few different calls because we had technical issues. But it's been a long one, but worth it. Post E3 special. Loads of amazing stuff and some cool browser games to get your teeth into too, hopefully. But just wanted to say thank you to Samuel again, editor of PC Gamer on our podcast, which is amazing. So cheers, Samuel. It's been awesome.
Dude, absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you having me. I suppose if you don't mind me giving a quick plug for PC Gamer.
Please.
PC Gamer is like a successful magazine. Our website. I don't know why I'm doing a Wikipedia description. PC Gamer is awesome. Issue out now is got Eve Online on the cover. Looks amazing. Eve Valkyrie, sorry. But it's like a massive Eve special, 12 pages, and it's really kind of shiny wallet, which looks really cool. The website is full of awesome E3 stuff. A lot of the stuff I've talked about today, I've done like extended previews on Batman, Assassin's Creed. Check all that stuff out, PCGamer.com. And John, thank you so much for having me. I've been
thank you.
Oh no, I've been an increasingly large percentage of these podcasts now. It's like something like 2.8%. So that's good.
Fantastic. Yeah. You are Samuel W. Roberts on Twitter?
Samuel W. Roberts on Twitter. I don't recommend following me. I do talk absolute shite, and don't take any of the things I say seriously, because, all the stuff Chet normally says at this point in the podcast.
Check us out on YouTube at Chet and John. Check us out on Twitter at Chet and John, at John Denton. iTunes, buy PC Gamer, it's the shit. And keep it real for me, 2003. Later.
Bye.
The Hive haven't been on Earth in centuries. That wizard came from the moon.